$100. You can make $100 donation. 10, 12, 60. Get a tax receipt with it. Just send me that you're in for 100, and I will send you the link and where you can donate. That easy. As we get to the race report now, brought to you by Can Torque. They're excited to announce the newest addition to their tool series, mechanical and hydraulic flange spreaders, powerful, durable, and user-friendly. Check it out for a demonstration at cantorque.com. Colin Livingston joins us once again, and we had talked about this a while ago, but the Canadian Grand Prix is now officially off the 21 calendar, which sucks because that's 2 years in a row now. So the schedule, though, Colin, I guess that makes it a lot easier because they race in June, and now they're not going to have to be driving for like 32 hours or anything like that. So I guess that's the one positive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going from Baku in Azerbaijan to Montreal in less than a week, obviously, is a big deal. Montreal's been replaced by the Turkish Grand Prix, which came back after a long hiatus last year. So, I mean, if the teams end up driving, it's not that bad. It's a day and a bit of transport from Baku to get to Istanbul. But likely, for the intercontinental stuff, they'll still throw all the all the kit, in sea cans and get them up in the air, fly them. It's just a lot easier. It's only a 1 hour time zone change versus, whatever it would be. I think it's about 8 hours between Turkey or between Baku and Montreal. So definitely going to be easier on the teams, but definitely stinks to be a Canadian race fan because right now we just don't really have anything to look forward to in Canada this year.
Let's shift gears over to NASCAR. I know you kind of pumped up what might have been a pretty exciting race in Talladega. Did it play out with kind of the theatrics that you were expecting? No,
I mean, it actually was a fairly straightforward race. I mean, there's definitely a few incidents on track, and I'm definitely never a fan of seeing, the crashes, the flips, but Joey Logano, he got upside down, kind of, I don't know, about midway through the race, about 2/3 through the race. He was okay, which is always what we're looking for. But yeah, no, the what's known as the big one never really happened. They were definitely shaping up to destroy a bunch of race cars. But towards the end of the race with only a handful of laps to go, Martin Truex Jr. Cut a tire, stayed out on track, not in the driving line. Martin didn't do anything wrong because they knew that the likelihood of an incident was really high. Stayed out, trying to bank on the caution so that they lost as little, track position as possible. Unfortunately, his tire lost the tread off the carcass. He ended up spinning. The carcass ended up on the track. They had to throw the caution, which reduced the race to basically a green-white checker. That green-white checker, it takes almost a full lap for the cars to get, right up to song. And, fortunately it just didn't happen, but, good win for Brad Keselowski and, the Team Penske folks.
Colin Livingston joins us in the Can Torque Racing Report. Brad Keselowski was the winner, and that's great. But seriously, I want to move ahead to this weekend because honestly, they're going to Kansas for the Buschy McBush 400, which is like the greatest name ever. The Buschy McBush 400.
I mean, I don't even know if I can say it. I like, having to type it out and having to realize that was the name that came out of, Anheuser-Busch's Name the Race social media campaign, the Buschy McBush 400. At the very least, I'm going to be tuning in to see how many times they drop it on the broadcast. And Kansas is typically a pretty good race. So, really, really not going to be a bad weekend for it.
Let's move over to IndyCar now as we're joined by Colin Livingston for the Can Torque Racing Report. Another, exciting event in St. Petersburg. How important was it for Colton Herta to get his first win of the year?
Well, every win is important. There's no insignificant win. I mean, Colton is definitely one of the rising stars of IndyCar. Son of a former driver, Brian Herta. We raced for a number of years with Brian. Now they're under the Andretti umbrella. But yeah, he's definitely, probably the hottest shooting star that the series has right now. Great to see Joseph Newgarden was in contention again. He was there at the end of the race. The St. Pete track is really, really hard to pass. I mean, mentioned it so many times about what makes a good track and what makes a challenging track. And one of the issues that they have is that the final complex that pulls onto the front straightaway is such a flowing corner that you need to use the majority of the straightaway to kind of suck up to the car that you're hoping to pass. And what we're seeing in the race is that a lot of the teams were, even with their push to pass and with the drafting help, they were running out of gear. Like the car, started making a run, and by the time they were kind of getting ready, they were basically on the rev limiter and couldn't make those overtakes, which led to a lot of drivers making really questionable overtakes throughout the race.
Colin Livingston joins us in the Can Torque Racing Report. And when you look at, it's funny to say this, rookie Jimmy Johnson, it really illustrates, though, just how different IndyCar is to NASCAR, right? Like Jimmy Johnson was considered one of the best drivers in NASCAR. And, he spun himself on cold tires at a pit stop. He overcooked in a corner. He got stuck up against the tire wall. Like, he looks not just like a rookie necessarily, but just like a guy who's trying to get comfortable in open wheel racing.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, obviously Jimmy's got all the talent in the world, but it definitely underlines how difficult these cars are to drive. NBC did an awesome job when Jimmy, basically parked it in the fence. I mean, he didn't do any damage, but he lost 2 laps while his crew was walking him through the procedure on how to get the car in reverse. And, if you've never driven a race car, people are, in their cars right now on the street, it's not a big deal. You stop, you shift it into reverse, and away you go. To do that in an Indy car isn't, you've got a sequential gearbox. So the first thing you have to do is, I can't remember the exact procedure, but you have to get it into neutral. Then you have to find reverse. Then there's a button on the steering wheel. And then you've got to slowly depress the clutch, which is also a paddle on the steering wheel to try and get the car to start moving. So they're walking him through all these procedures, and he just wasn't able to find it. Again, it cost him 2 laps. The cold tires thing is similar to what happened to him last weekend at Barber, where he got behind, he was passed by a car, went over a crest, and didn't realize the downforce loss that happens when you follow somebody. Again, coming out of the pits in IndyCar versus Formula One, there are no tire warmers. So when you pull out, your tires are ambient temperature, and it takes, probably 2 to 3 laps before they really start to grip up, which means you can push, but you can't run like you're on hot tires. And yeah, I mean, these are all things that he's going to figure out. But these cars are a handful for sure. And I mean, even the other, quote unquote rookie, Romain Grosjean, he's already come out many times and said that Indy cars are way more physically difficult to drive than a Formula One car because everything's done without any driver advantage.
Are these not things that they should have kind of known prior to this, or is it just kind of a normal, growing pains of a driver? What do you call a quote unquote rookie driver? No,
it's growing pains. I mean, they go through all this stuff in his testing, but Strati, like when it's one thing to learn the skills in a practice, whether you're a hockey player or, whatever the discipline is, but executing under pressure in game time situations is totally different. It's a different mindset. It's, it takes different skills and learn. Like you could be the fastest skater in the world. You could have the most accurate shot in the world in practice, but trying to do it when somebody's bearing down on you in a game situation, especially when you have to do something, is way different than in a test.
And F1 is returning to Portugal this weekend. Of course, it was supposed to be there in January, but that was obviously canceled. Hamilton and Verstappen likely going to be battling one another. But what about the second drivers for Mercedes and Red Bull? Any pressure for them to get closer, to their top drivers? Like, I get part of it's driving, but you seemingly have an advantage with their cars. And Perez and Botha really haven't necessarily done much thus far.
Yeah, I mean, they are, it's early into the season, so the teams aren't going to be so critical on the drivers, but both, Bottas and Perez have really underperformed and haven't shown the signs of brilliance that their teammates have, which is, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So, at least internally, there's going to be a lot of pressure. This was a track last year that showed a lot of, that really lent itself to a lot of fights between drivers. So for me, it's going to be awesome to watch, Hamilton and Verstappen. I wouldn't be surprised to see some contact between those two. My instinct says that there was some light contact last weekend in Italy. Hamilton is not going to give to Verstappen 2 weekends in a row. So if it comes down to those moves, I think Hamilton feels like he's got one in the bank. But there's going to be battles, from start, the start of the field to the back of the field. And, I know it's just going to be another great race. So hopefully we get a few of our listeners to tune in this weekend.
Well, it should be a busy weekend. Lots going on in F1 and Indy and NASCAR. So we'll have lots to talk about, especially the Buschy McBush 400. I just like saying it, so I had to get it in one more time. Colin, always good to talk to you, man. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.
Sounds good, boys.
The Buschy McBush 400. That's a fun name, man. Little social media name. Why not?
Thanks a lot, Colin.
Anytime, Connor. Thanks, bud.
I love that name.
We need the Torquey McTorque 300 one of these days.
Oh, so much possibility.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you next week, Colin. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.